I live in a city that never seems to sleep. In a small but comfortable apartment that has been my sanctuary from a demanding career. As a senior marketing strategist for a major tech firm, my life has been a whirlwind of deadlines, creative campaigns, and the constant pressure to innovate. For the longest time, I believed that hard work was the only currency that truly mattered in the corporate world. This is the story of how I discovered that for some, loyalty is just a word, and promises are made to be broken. It's also the story of how a denied bonus led to the unraveling of a multi-year fraud scheme, and how I made sure the people who wronged me would have every reason to remember the month of September for the rest of their lives. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Asterisk, the corporate world is a finely tuned ecosystem of ambition. And at Sterling Solutions, the air was thick with it. Our office, a gleaming monument of glass and steel in the heart of the city, was a place where careers were made or broken on the back of a single successful project. I had always thrived in that high-pressure environment. For 7 years, I had poured my soul into the company, climbing the ladder from a junior copywriter to a senior marketing strategist. I was good at my job, exceptionally so. I could dissect a market, identify a demographic's deepest desires, and craft a campaign that spoke directly to them. My work was my identity, and my track record was nearly flawless. My direct superior was the head of sales, David Chen. At 45, David was the epitome of a corporate shark. He had a silver tongue, a smile that never quite reached his eyes, and a reputation for closing deals by any means necessary. He was charismatic in a way that made you want to trust him. But there was always a cold, calculating glint in his gaze that kept you on your guard. He saw people not as colleagues, but as assets or obstacles. For a long time, I was a valuable asset. My marketing strategies laid the groundwork for his sales team to swoop in and close. We were, on paper, a successful team. Working under David was his star sales associate, Emily White. She was 28, ambitious, and mirrored David's brand of ruthless charm. She was a sycophant of the highest order, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes and echoing his opinions in meetings. There was an unspoken alliance between them that went beyond professional courtesy. While the rest of us were grinding away, they often took long client lunches that stretched deep into the afternoon, returning with the faint scent of expensive wine on their breath. I paid it little mind. Office politics were a distraction I couldn't afford. The project that would change everything landed on our desks in January. It was the Keystone account, a potential partnership with Innovate Inc., a titan in the software development industry. Landing them would not just be a win. It would be a game changer, cementing Sterling Solutions as the undisputed leader in our sector. The commission and bonus potential were astronomical, and the entire company was buzzing with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. David was tasked with leading the charge, and he knew my marketing strategy would be the tip of the spear. He called me into his glass-walled office, the city skyline sprawling behind him like a conquered kingdom. "Kira," he began, his voice smooth as silk. "This is the big one. The one we'll tell stories about at our retirement parties." He leaned forward, his expression deadly serious. "I need you to give this everything you have. I'm talking late nights, weekends, your absolute A-game. The sales team can't get a foot in the door without a world-class marketing proposal. You build the bridge and we'll march across it." I nodded, my mind already churning with ideas. "Of course, David, I'm on it." "Good," he said, and then he dangled the carrot. "And to make it worth your while, when we land this, and I know we will with you at the helm, there's a $50,000 bonus in it for you. Straight from the Project Success Fund. No red tape, no waiting for the annual review. You deliver, I deliver. $50,000. The number hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. It was more than a bonus. It was a life-altering sum. It was a down payment on a house, the end of my student loans, a safety net I had only ever dreamed of. "Are you serious?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He extended a hand across his polished mahogany desk. As serious as a heart attack, Kira. You have my word. We shook on it. His grip was firm, his gaze direct. In that moment, I believed him. I saw him not just as my boss, but as a mentor who recognized my value and was willing to reward it. It was a fatal miscalculation for the next 2 months. My life became the Innovate Inc. project. My apartment became a satellite office, littered with market analysis reports, drafts of ad copy, and empty coffee cups. I worked 18-hour days, fueled by caffeine and the promise of that bonus. I dove deeper into market research than ever before, uncovering insights about Innovate Inc. Needs that even they hadn't articulated yet. I designed a multi-platform digital campaign that was innovative, aggressive, and perfectly tailored. I sacrificed my personal life, canceling plans with friends and family, my eyes glued to a screen as I refined every last detail. It was exhausting, draining work. But the thought of that handshake and that promise kept me going. Finally, the day of the big pitch arrived. I presented my strategy to the Innovate Inc. executives alongside David and his team. I laid out the plan with confidence and precision, and I could see the moment they were won over. The data was irrefutable, the creative was compelling, and the strategy was bulletproof. When I finished, there was a moment of silence before the CEO of Innovate Inc. broke into a smile. A week later, the news broke. We had landed the account. A 5-year, 8-figure deal. The office erupted in celebration. Champagne was popped, backs were slapped, and David stood in the center of it all, soaking in the glory. He caught my eye across the crowded room and raised his glass to me with a wide, triumphant grin. In that moment of shared victory, I felt an immense sense of pride and accomplishment. I had done it. I had delivered. Now, all I had to do was wait for him to do the same. Asterisk. The initial euphoria of landing the Innovate Inc. account carried the office for weeks. The deal was the talk of the industry, and Sterling Solutions was riding a wave of unprecedented prestige. I felt a deep satisfaction. The quiet pride of a craftsman who knows her work was the foundation of it all. I didn't expect a check to be cut the next day, of course. I understood that corporate finances had their own rhythm, a bureaucratic dance of invoices, NET30 payment terms, and processing queues. So I was patient after the first month had passed and the first major payment from Innovate Inc. had cleared our accounts, a milestone celebrated in a company-wide email from our CEO, Richard Sterling. I decided it was an appropriate time to check in. I caught David in the hallway near the coffee station, keeping my tone light and casual. "Morning, David," I said with a smile. "Fantastic news about that first wire from Innovate. It feels great to see the revenue start rolling in." "Absolutely, Kira," he beamed, stirring his coffee. "A testament to our hard work." Speaking of which, I continued gently. "I was just wondering what the timeline looks like for the project bonus you mentioned. Just trying to plan my finances for the year." His smile didn't falter, but something shifted in his eyes. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible closing of a shutter. "Right? The bonus. I'm already on it. Just a bit of a paperwork jam over in HR, new fiscal quarter. You know how it is. They're swamped. I'll chase them down next week." It sounded plausible enough. HR was notoriously slow. I thanked him and went back to my desk, satisfied for the moment. 2 more months crawled by. The Innovate Inc. project was now in full swing, and my marketing campaigns were exceeding every performance metric we had set. The client was thrilled, the revenue was flowing, and the account was a resounding success. But there was still no word on my bonus. My follow-up emails to David were met with increasingly vague replies. "Finance is restructuring bonus payouts for all departments." He wrote back once, "I'm waiting for the new guidelines." Another time, it was, "The CEO wants to review all major discretionary bonuses personally at the end of the second quarter. My hands are tied until then." Each excuse was a pebble dropped into the pit of my stomach. The unease was beginning to curdle into genuine suspicion. During this time, I often found myself venting my frustrations over lunch with Ben Carter, senior data analyst and one of the few people in the company I considered a true friend. Ben was quiet, observant, and had a healthy cynicism for corporate politics. "He's giving you the runaround," Kira, Ben said one afternoon, pushing his salad around his plate. "David Chen has a reputation. He takes the credit and shares the blame. I've seen him do it to others. You should get the terms of that bonus in writing." I know, I sighed, feeling foolish. But it was a handshake deal. He gave me his word. And I have witnesses who heard him talk about the success fund for the project. Witnesses who want to stay on his good side, Ben countered grimly. "Just be careful, asterisk." By the 6th month, my patience had worn thin. I scheduled a formal meeting with David and came prepared. I laid out a printout of the project's performance report. The revenue generated. The market share captured the glowing testimonials from the client. "David, the project has already generated 3 times the initial projected revenue for the first 2 quarters. I said, my voice firm but professional. "The success of this account is undeniable. I've been patient, but the excuses are starting to feel like delays. I delivered on my end of our agreement. I need you to deliver on yours." His friendly demeanor had vanished completely. He leaned back in his chair, his expression cold and dismissive. "You seem a bit entitled, Kira," he said, his tone laced with condescension. That bonus was a motivational target, a possibility tied to overall company performance. It wasn't some contractual obligation. I stared at him, stunned. "A motivational target. You looked me in the eye and gave me your word. You named a specific number. I think you're misremembering the specifics of a casual conversation." He said smoothly, "The gaslighting's so blatant, it took my breath away. You've been compensated for your work with your salary. That's how employment works." Emily White happened to walk past his office at that exact moment, a stack of folders in her arms. She paused, glancing in, a smirk playing on her lips before she continued on her way. It was a small, cruel gesture, but it confirmed everything. They were in this together. The humiliation burned in my chest, hot and acidic. The 8th month marked the final, infuriating nail in the coffin. I made one last attempt. Sending a formal email to him and copying the head of HR. I detailed the date and content of our original conversation, the project's success, and my 8 months of patient follow-ups. The response I received was from HR. A boilerplate statement saying, "Discretionary bonuses are subject to managerial approval and budgetary review. Mr. Chen has not submitted a bonus request for your consideration at this time." David didn't even bother to reply himself. He had one. He had stolen my work, used it to bolster his own career, and was now brazenly denying the promise he had made. The betrayal was absolute. The fight for my bonus was over. But as I sat at my desk, staring at the sterile HR email, a new feeling began to take root in the pit of my stomach, eclipsing the hurt and humiliation. It was a cold, hard, and patient rage. The fight for my bonus was over, but the war was just beginning. Asterisk, for a week, I was adrift in a sea of impotent anger. I went through the motions at work, my mind replaying David's smug, dismissive face and Emily's triumphant smirk. The sense of injustice was a physical weight, a pressure behind my eyes and a tightness in my chest. I felt powerless. David was a senior manager, protected by his position and his ability to manipulate the narrative. What could I possibly do? Complaining further would only brand me as a disgruntled employee. I needed something more. I needed proof of something he couldn't explain away. The universe, it seems, has a strange sense of timing. The catalyst arrived not with a bang, but with the quiet ping of an email notification. It was a Friday afternoon, and a mass email was sent out by a new, flustered clerk in the accounts payable department. The subject line was, "Reminder, Q3 expense report submissions." The clerk had, in a catastrophic display of incompetence, failed to use the blind copy function. Instead, he had sent the email to the general marketing and sales distribution lists, and attached to it was the master tracking spreadsheet he was working from. presumably to show which managers had already submitted. Most people deleted the email, grumbling about the rookie mistake. But I, fueled by a simmering cocktail of suspicion and fury, opened the attachment. It was a sprawling spreadsheet detailing every expense report submitted by the sales and marketing teams for the entire quarter. My eyes scanned the columns, not even sure what I was looking for. And then I saw it. It was a submission from David Chen, dated in early March, just a few weeks after the Innovate Inc. deal was officially signed and celebrated. The description was client entertainment and strategy dinner, Las Vegas. The amount was a staggering $15. My heart began to beat a little faster. $15,000 for a single dinner. It was exorbitant, even by our company's generous client entertainment standards. But it was the location that snagged my attention. Las Vegas. Innovate Inc. was headquartered in Austin, Texas. We had flown there for the pitch. Why on earth would David be entertaining them in Las Vegas, especially for that price? My fingers flew across my keyboard. I pulled up the financial reports for the Innovate Inc. account. There were no associated travel or entertainment expenses for Las Vegas. The entire pitch and onboarding process had taken place in Austin and at our own headquarters. The dinner had nothing to do with our new client. So what was it for? Curiosity had now fully ignited into a hunt. I did a quick search for the name of the restaurant listed on the expense line. ECLA. A few clicks revealed it was a 3 Michelin star establishment inside one of the most opulent casino resorts on the Las Vegas Strip. The place was famous for its 17-course tasting menu and its wine list that cost more than a mid-size car. My mind was racing, connecting invisible dots. David had told me the company's budget was too tight for my bonus, that all discretionary spending was under review. Yet he had no problem expensing a $15,000 meal that appeared to be completely fabricated. Then a thought struck me. Emily White. Her social media dot with a sense of grim purpose. I navigated to her Instagram profile. It was, as expected, a curated gallery of brunches, designer handbags, and exotic vacations. I scrolled back through her posts, my eyes scanning the dates. Back to early March, and there it was. Posted the first weekend of March, a picture of Emily, beaming, posing in a ridiculously expensive-looking designer dress. She was standing on a balcony, and behind her, the glittering, unmistakable skyline of the Las Vegas Strip was on full display. My blood ran cold. I zoomed in on the photo. In the corner of the shot, a small, ornate table lamp was visible. A quick search of the Eclat Resorts gallery confirmed it. The lamp was identical to the ones in their exclusive penthouse suites. The caption on the photo read, "Vegas Baby." Sometimes you just have to celebrate the big wins in style. The timeline was a perfect match. The big win was undoubtedly the Innovate Inc. account, my win. But the celebration, it seemed, was all theirs. The pieces didn't just click into place. They slammed together with the force of a tectonic shift. David hadn't just denied me my bonus. He had lied, gaslighted me, and claimed the company was tightening its belt, all while using company funds to take his subordinate hand, likely his mistress, on a lavish vacation to Las Vegas, disguised as a business expense. That $15,000 wasn't for a client. It was for them. It was a celebration funded by the profits of my hard work. I leaned back in my chair, the blood pounding in my ears. The spreadsheet, the restaurant, the Instagram post, it was a constellation of evidence. This was no longer just about a broken promise. It was about fraud. It was a clear, flagrant abuse of company policy and funds. I looked at the incriminating receipt line on the spreadsheet. Then at the picture of Emily's smiling face. The feeling of powerlessness that had haunted me for weeks evaporated, replaced by a crystalline, razor-sharp clarity. I finally had a thread, and I knew with every fiber of my being I was going to pull on it until their entire deceptive world unraveled. A single fraudulent expense report was a damning piece of evidence. But on its own, it might be something David could wriggle out of. He was a master of corporate spin, and I could already hear his excuses. A clerical error, a misunderstanding with the accounting department, a last-minute client meeting that was genuinely held. I knew I needed more. I needed to build a case so airtight, so overwhelming that it couldn't be dismissed or buried. I needed to show a pattern of behavior, not just a single mistake. And for that, I needed help. My first and only choice was Ben Carter. I caught him as he was leaving for the day, asking if he had a minute to talk about something off the record. We found a quiet, empty conference room on a different floor. The silence a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I laid out everything I had found, the spreadsheets, the details of the Las Vegas dinner, the perfectly timed Instagram post from Emily. Ben listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each detail. He scrolled through the pictures on my phone, his analytical mind visibly processing the information. When I was finished, he let out a long, low whistle. "Wow, Kira," he said, shaking his head. "I knew David was a snake, but this is next level. This is embezzlement." "I know," I replied, my voice tense. "But this is just one receipt. I have a gut feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg. He's been head of sales for 5 years. Who knows how long this has been going on? I need to see his entire expense history." Ben ran a hand through his hair, his brow furrowed in thought. "That's not easy," he said. "Access to that level of financial data is restricted. If I just go pulling his files, it'll trigger all sorts of red flags. Its security will be on me in a heartbeat, and David will know someone is sniffing around." My heart sank. So that's it. There's nothing we can do. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the whiteboard as if it held the answer. "No," he said finally, a glint of determination in his eyes. "He doesn't get away with this. Not after what he did to you. There might be a way, but it's risky for both of us." He explained his plan. As a senior data analyst, he was occasionally tasked with running departmental spending audits to identify potential cost-saving measures. It was a legitimate part of his job. If he initiated a broad audit of the entire sales department's spending over the past 2 years, he could bury his real target David's records within a mountain of legitimate data. It would be a massive undertaking, but it would provide the perfect cover. "I can frame it as a proactive efficiency analysis," Ben explained. "No one will question it. And once I have the raw data, I can isolate David's and Emily's spending without anyone knowing what I'm really looking for." The risk was immense. If we were caught, we'd both be fired instantly, possibly even facing legal trouble ourselves for unauthorized access to company data. But the alternative, letting David get away with, it was unthinkable. "I'm in," I said without hesitation. "What do you need from me?" "Patience," Ben said with a wry smile. "And a strong password for your laptop." The investigation began the following Monday. Ben formally submitted his proposal for a sales departmental spending audit, which was quickly approved by his manager, who was always eager to impress the higher-ups with cost-cutting initiatives. The digital floodgates opened, and terabytes of financial data began flowing to Ben's secure server. For the next 3 weeks, we operated like covert operatives. We communicated through encrypted messaging apps and met in coffee shops far from the office. During the day, Ben would perform his regular duties, while at night, he would meticulously sift through the data looking for anomalies. The first discoveries were small but significant. A pattern of lavish spending began to emerge. There were weekly client lunches at the city's most expensive restaurants, often with no client names listed. Just vague descriptions like partnership discussion. There were purchases of high-end electronics, new laptops, tablets, smart watches categorized as office supplies. There were first-class flight upgrades for domestic trips and hotel suites, booked for single-night stays. Then Ben found the first major thread. He noticed a series of monthly payments, always for the same amount, $4,500, to a vendor named Innovate Marketing Solutions, LLC. The name was clever. At a glance, it looked like a legitimate expense related to the Innovate Inc. account. But the payments had started over a year before we ever even pitched to Innovate. Inc. This is our shell company, Ben said, his voice low with excitement during one of our late-night calls. I'm almost certain of it. He dug deeper. He ran a public records search on the LLC. It was registered to a residential address in a suburb an hour outside the city. A quick property search on that address revealed the owner, a Mr. Gerald White. Any idea who that is? Ben asked. My blood turned to ice. Emily's last name is White, I whispered. Check her social media. See if she has a brother. It took Ben less than 5 minutes. He found a family photo Emily had posted a year ago. There she was, standing next to a man in his early 30s. The caption read, "So proud of my big bro Jerry for finally starting his own business." We had them. David was submitting monthly invoices for marketing services from a fake company owned by his girlfriend's brother. He would approve the payments himself. The money would flow to the LLC and they would pocket it. It was a clean, simple, and utterly audacious system of fraud. Ben kept digging, cross-referencing every payment, every expense. The final tally was staggering. Between the fraudulent invoices from the shell company, the padded expense reports, the personal luxury trips disguised as business travel, and the gifts shipped to their home addresses, David, Chen, and Emily White had embezzled over $250,000 from Sterling Solutions in just 2 years, my $50,000 bonus. The sum he claimed the company couldn't afford was a drop in the ocean compared to what they had stolen. We sat in a dimly lit cafe. The evidence laid out on the screen of Ben's encrypted laptop. Charts, timelines, copies of bank transfers, public records. It was a mountain of irrefutable proof. The scope of their deception was far greater than I had ever imagined. So, what's our next move? Ben asked, his face grim. Do we take this to the CEO? To HR? I thought about it for a long moment. Taking it through official channels was the right thing to do, but it felt unsatisfying. It would lead to a quiet internal investigation, a hushed firing, and a press release about personnel changes. David and Emily would be disgraced. But they would be allowed to slink away into the shadows. There would be no public accountability, no real justice for their arrogance and greed. No, I said, a new audacious plan beginning to form in my mind. They embarrassed me. They made me feel small. They did it all with a smile on their faces. They don't deserve a quiet exit. They deserve a public spectacle. I looked at Ben, my eyes blazing with a newfound resolve. The annual shareholders presentation is next month, I said, and I know exactly how we're going to deliver our findings. Asterisk, the annual shareholders presentation was the most important event on the Sterling Solutions corporate calendar. It was a grand affair held in a downtown hotel auditorium. A meticulously choreographed performance designed to impress investors, analysts, and the board of directors with a dazzling display of success and forward-thinking strategy. It was a day of immense pressure where every slide and every spoken word was scrutinized. For a senior manager like David Chen, it was the ultimate stage to showcase his triumphs. And this year, his entire presentation was set to revolve around the record-breaking year for the sales department, a record built squarely on the foundation of the Innovate Inc. account I had secured. The irony was so thick I could taste it. He was going to stand on that stage in front of the most powerful people in our company and take credit for my work, all while the money he stole from that very success lined his pockets. It was this staggering arrogance that fueled my plan. I didn't just want to expose him. I wanted to use his own stage, his own moment of glory, to tear down his carefully constructed facade. I wanted to make sure he would remember the month of September for the rest of his life. Asterisk, I named our plan Project September to Remember. Ben was initially hesitant. Kira, hijacking the main presentation at the shareholders meeting. That's not just risky, it's insane. We could be sued. We could be arrested. What are they going to sue us for? I countered, my voice low and steady. for revealing a multi-year $250,000 fraud scheme to the people whose money they were stealing. We're not hacking them. We're whistleblowers. We just have a flair for the dramatic. My conviction won him over. We had the truth on our side, and that gave us a powerful, albeit dangerous, shield. Asterisk, the next few weeks were a blur of clandestine activity. My role was to craft the narrative. Using my marketing skills, I transformed Ben's raw data into a slick, professional, and utterly damning presentation. I didn't fill it with angry accusations or emotional appeals. Instead, I let the evidence speak for itself, presenting it in the cold, hard language of a corporate audit. The presentation was structured like a case study, designed to be easily digestible for a room full of executives. Asterisk, the first slide was the title. A forensic analysis of sales department spending 202-22024. A case study in financial irregularities. It was professional, anodyne, and gave no hint of the bombshell to come. Asterisk, what followed was a masterclass in storytelling through data. We used clean, simple charts to show the timeline of the fraudulent invoices from the shell company. We had a slide with a map, showing the flight paths of David's business trips to luxury resorts that had no connection to any of our clients. We included a side-by-side comparison. My promised but denied $50,000 bonus next to a detailed breakdown of their $15,000. Las Vegas celebration. We embedded a screenshot of Emily's Instagram post next to the hotel folio from the resort, obtained through a bit of clever social engineering by Ben. The final slide was the crescendo, a single, stark number in a massive font, showing the grand total. They had embezzled $258,431. While I polished the presentation, Ben worked on the most dangerous part of our plan. As senior data analyst, he had deep network access. He discovered that every shareholder presentation file was preloaded onto a local server in the auditorium's tech booth. All the technician had to do was press a button, and that's where we would strike. Ben's plan was simple. He wouldn't delete David's file. He would replace it with ours. Same name, same format. When the technician queued it up, nobody would suspect a thing. And when David clicked his remote on stage, it would be our presentation that launched. The night before the meeting, we met one last time at our usual out-of-the-way cafe. The air between us was thick with nervous energy. The file is in place, Ben said, closing his laptop. When he clicks, our show begins. It's set to autoplay. He won't be able to stop it from the stage. Good, I replied, my heart hammering in my chest. He deserves to stand there and watch it all burn. Ben looked at me. Are you ready for this, Kira? Once we start, there's no going back. I thought about the last 8 months, the stolen work, the humiliation, the gaslighting. I thought about David and Emily celebrating their theft while I struggled. And I knew. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. We paid for our coffee and walked into the cool September night, 2 ordinary employees about to start a corporate war. The next morning, I put on my best suit, dark gray armor for the battle ahead. I walked into the auditorium.com on the outside, but with a storm of adrenaline inside. Board members whispered. Investors flipped through their programs. And then I saw David and Emily radiating smug success as they took their seats in the front row. He had no idea he was a dead man walking. The lights dimmed. Our CEO, Richard Sterling, stepped on stage. He praised the company. He praised David. And then he introduced him with a booming voice. David strode up like a king, shook Sterling's hand, and turned to the audience. He smiled, raised his remote, and clicked. My heart leaped into my throat. This was the moment. On the screen, instead of his title slide, bold white letters appeared on black. A forensic analysis of sales department spending, a case study in financial irregularities. The room murmured in confusion. David froze. He clicked again. Nothing. 15 seconds later, the next slide appeared just as we designed. On the left, promised bonus to Kiravelt. $50,000 denied. On the right, a $15,000. Vegas dinner expense receipt. Gasps filled the room. David turned pale. Slide after slide revealed the whole conspiracy, shell companies, hidden payments, and Emily's own social media photos. The audience was silent now, watching his public destruction in real time. Emily crumbled in her seat. The final slide was brutal. A single number filled the screen. $258,431 total embezzled funds 2022 to 2024. The presentation ended. David wasn't a star executive anymore. He was a thief exposed for all to see. I stood up, my legs shaking but my voice steady. My name is Kira Velt. My colleague Ben Carter and I uncovered these irregularities. We felt it was our duty to bring them directly to the board and shareholders. Every eye turned to me. Sterling's face was cold fury. His voice sliced the silence. Security. Escort Mr. Chen and Ms. White out of this auditorium. 2 guards moved in. David and Emily were led away without a word. Sterling pointed at us. You too. My office. After this meeting, then, calmly, he announced a 15-minute recess. The room erupted into frantic whispers. Ben and I exchanged a single look. It was done. Project September to Remember was a success. Asterisk, the CEO's office was on the top floor. A vast, intimidating space with panoramic views of the city. Waiting there felt like being summoned to see the king after a palace coup. Ben and I sat in silence on a leather couch. The adrenaline from the auditorium slowly being replaced by a profound uncertainty about our futures. We had exposed the rot, but in doing so, we had shattered the company's carefully polished image in front of its most important stakeholders. We were either heroes or pariahs, and we were about to find out which Richard Sterling swept into the room. Followed by 2 stern-faced individuals I recognized as the company's chief legal counsel. Sterling didn't sit down. He paced in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, his hands clasped behind his back. That was the most brazen, insubordinate, and spectacularly effective act of whistleblowing I have ever witnessed in my 40-year career. He said, his voice a low rumble. He stopped pacing and turned to face us, his expression unreadable. Hand it over. Everything you have. Ben opened his laptop, and for the next hour, we walked them through the entire investigation. We showed them every spreadsheet, every transaction, every piece of evidence we had meticulously compiled. The lawyers took notes, asking sharp, precise questions. They were building a legal case, and our research was the foundation. When we were finished, Sterling finally sat down behind his enormous desk. He looked at us, a mixture of fury and grudging respect in his eyes. The fury was for David and the betrayal. The respect, I realized, was for us. They are both terminated, effective immediately, he stated flatly. Our legal team will be filing a report with the district attorney's office tomorrow morning. We will be pursuing full criminal charges and a civil suit to recover every last cent they stole. He then leaned forward, his gaze intense. What you did today was incredibly high risk. You bypassed every single protocol. You publicly embarrassed this company. But you also saved us from an ongoing financial hemorrhage and a far greater scandal had this come out through other means. You showed loyalty to the company's integrity, not to a corrupt manager. That has value. He looked at Ben. Mr. Carter, the head of the data analytics department, is retiring next year. He'll be retiring next month instead. The position is yours, effective immediately. We need someone with your skills and your backbone leading that team. Ben was stunned into silence, managing only a quiet, "Thank you, sir." Then Sterling's eyes turned to me. "Ms. Velt, what David Chen did to you over that bonus was not just unprofessional. It was a disgrace. I am personally authorizing a discretionary payment to you for $250,000, roughly 5 times what he promised you. Think of it as a thank you from our shareholders for protecting their investment." I was floored. The amount was beyond anything I could have imagined. Furthermore, he continued, "The position of Director of Marketing is now vacant. It's yours if you want it." For a fleeting moment, I was tempted. It was everything I had ever worked for. Director of Marketing. A massive bonus. Justice served. But as I sat there, I realized something profound. The thrill of victory was already fading, replaced by a deep sense of weariness. This company, this building, was now tainted by the memory of the fight I had to endure. My trust in the system was broken. I had one, but I had no desire to stay and rule over the ashes. I took a deep breath. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice steady, "I am incredibly grateful for the offer, truly, but I believe my time at this company has come to an end. I would like to tender my resignation." Sterling looked surprised, but he also seemed to understand. "I see," he said slowly. "In that case, the bonus is still yours. Consider it part of a very generous severance package. We will, of course, provide you with a glowing letter of recommendation." I accepted. My last 2 weeks at Sterling Solutions were surreal. The office was buzzing with the scandal. I was treated with a strange mixture of awe and fear. David and Emily were gone, their names scraped from the company directory as if they had never existed. Ben was already transitioning into his new role, a renewed sense of purpose radiating from him. We had one last lunch together, and I knew I was leaving the company in at least one pair of good hands. On my final day, I walked out of that gleaming glass and steel tower for the last time, not with a sense of bitterness, but with a profound feeling of liberation. I had faced betrayal and injustice, and I hadn't just fought back. I had burned the whole corrupt system to the ground on my own terms, with the severance package, providing a comfortable financial cushion. I didn't rush into another job. I took a long, much-needed vacation. I traveled. I read. I reconnected with the life I had sacrificed for my career. And when I returned, I didn't send out my resume. Instead, I filed the paperwork to start my own business, Velt Ethical Marketing, a consulting firm dedicated to helping brands grow without cutting moral corners. The memory of that September is no longer a scar. It's a reminder of my own strength. I made them remember the month forever, not out of pure vengeance, but because it was the only path to justice. In doing so, I didn't just win a fight against a corrupt boss. I won back my own life.